now we move into All in the Family. This program obviously changed the course of TV. So to go back to the discussions of Dick Van Dyke, that program, kind of happy family, and they all were Gilligan's Island, the Dick Van Dyke Show, the Danny Thomas Show. I mentioned Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie, the Munsters. They all had kind of this happy theme. Everything was nice. By the end of the 30-minute program, everybody feels pretty good. And then along came Norman Lear with All in the Family. This character, and hopefully you watched the show, Archie Bunker, was openly racist. He was known as a bigot. His son-in-law on the left was, kind of a lefty liberal. And the two of them argued politics. First time this happened on TV. We had discussions of the Vietnam War. We had adult theme matter, things about drugs, sex, just a different time. And the arrival of the TV that you guys see today. You can thank Norman Lear on All in the Family, because previously to this show, everything was kind of bland. Archie was not bland. And it was all brought to us by this guy, Norman Lear, famous producer, who brought us a bunch of shows following All in the Family, Maude, The Jeffersons, and his programs delved into different topic matter that had not been seen on TV before. And along with All in the Family, Norman Lear in particular is the one guy that probably really changed TV. My grandmother hated his shows because they were too harsh. She would scream at me to turn it off, turn the channel. But that was the change that we got. And now the shows that you guys enjoy today that have more realism, more adult humor, came to us because of Norman Lear. So have an idea about All in the Family. You should have a sense of what this show was, the Mary Tyler Moore Show, the first show that depicted a single woman out on her own, a career female. This was new. In the 50s and 60s, females in programs were the housewives. Shows revolved around the family, they revolved around kids, but they rarely evolved around the lead female character. Now here we have Mary Tyler Moore out on her own. She's a producer at a TV news program in Minneapolis. Yeah, she dates men, but it's not her goal necessarily to be married and be a housewife. So this kind of, mirrors and depicts what the, women's rights movement that was going on in the 1970s, females out marching for their rights, the movement towards an ERA, an Equal Rights Amendment. And this show was also well written. It received Emmys. It did well in the ratings. So understand about Mary Tyler Moore. And then as we come towards the end here, the cool hip drama from the 70s. In the 60s, it was The Man from U.N.C.L.E. In the 70s, it was the Rockford Files. The 70s brought us the Private Investigator show, often played by old, overweight characters that had a fancy secretary and charged, several $100s a day, and they drove, big Cadillacs. That wasn't really what a private eye was. Most private eyes lived like this guy. He lived in a rundown trailer in a parking lot near the beach in Malibu, often got beat up, never knew what was going on, sometimes never got paid. So, have a sense of how this show was kind of hip and cool, played tongue-in-cheek by James Garner, who at the end of the program got into a dispute with the producers over the show and left the program because of injuries. But, Rockford Files brought us kind of cooler, hip copycat shows, undercover police officers like Baretta, Starsky and Hutch. Later on, a few years after that, Charlie's Angels, 3 female private investigators. Some people accused that show of, pure sexism. But this was kind of the movement happening in the 1970s. The last part of the unit, I focused on this particular show. It came along, I want to say in 1975, a landmark program based on your show of shows. Think again to that famous 50s show that ran on Saturday nights live from 9:30 to 11. This show was based on that program. Same premise, live, except they touched it late at night. Why do you think they had it so late at night? So they could get away with stuff. They could try different things. They could try some oddball humor. Again, a lot of adult topic matter. Richard Pryor, George Carlin, those were some of the early hosts. And then, of course, it spawned the career of many, many future movie stars. There's Will Ferrell, and, of course, Chevy Chase, and Dan Aykroyd, and John Belushi, and Eddie Murphy, and John Candy. The list goes on and on, stars that emerged from this show. So have a sense about some of the censorship that took place with SNL, some of the stars that came out of SNL, and you might see an essay question about Saturday Night Live or this program, the Flip Wilson Show. It made its way into my PowerPoint because it's the first variety show hosted by an African-American star. And it emerged to number 2 in the ratings. This was not buried late at night like SNL. The Flip Wilson Show ran in prime time. And it did quite well in the ratings. He played all these wacky characters. He did a cross-dressing character, Geraldine. So he dressed up as this female, and he was quite good at it. You can look at old clips of his program. So as I kind of wrap it up and we look back at the 3 to 4 weeks remote learning for the most part, cable TV, the growth of it, the 60s golden age, the situation comedy, the family sitcom shows like the Andy Griffith Show, the Dick Van Dyke Show, Innocent, evolving into the Norman Lear programs, All in the Family, Jeffersons, Maude, and then the dramas of the 60s, the sci-fi shows like Star Trek, and then the hip, cool spy program, Man from U.N.C.L.E. Then in the 70s, the Rockford Files, and then, of course, the involvement of SNL and how it changed late-night TV, making late-night TV kind of the place for innovation and change, if you will. Again, we'll have that assessment posted Friday morning, and you'll have a good number of hours to address what will be an essay question assessment to wrap up our unit. Mr. Olson back on camera here. 3, 2, 1. All right, just to wrap it up for the week, I'm going to be posting the last day of notes due this week. There'll again be some questions that go along with the PowerPoint you'll be watching and taking notes on the TV show SNL. I just kind of reviewed that with you. And then on top of that, there'll be a web quest due in. Those will all be due to me on Friday. And then on Friday, I'll be posting the assessment. Next week, next Monday, we start a new unit. Be well out there, broadcasting students.